episode 17 of the Rising Phoenix podcast. I am your host, Aiden Blake, and today I had the great privilege of sitting down with none other than my brother, Javik Blake. We talked about his career as a broadcaster prior to Elon, during his time at Elon, and now post-graduation with his work at the Biloxi Shuckers in AA baseball. We hope you enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome to episode 17 of the Rising Phoenix podcast, where today I am joined by the wonderful Javik Blake of the Biloxi Shuckers, an Elon graduate. How's everything going?
It's great. I'm so glad you failed to mention that I am, in fact, your older brother, but it's great to be here. Great to finally be on the podcast. And it's great. I'm sure our parents are going to eat this up, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, they should have a good time listening to it.
Yeah, it's all good, but excited to join. Obviously, Elon, a great place that really laid the groundwork for me to be where I'm at as young as I am. So it was really cool and a lot of special memories at Elon University.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's bring it back to the start of you're a sports fan, obviously. How'd you get into broadcast? How'd you get into, being a baseball lover of so much?
Well, you saw it firsthand. Because I dragged you got dragged to an unquestionable number of my baseball games when I was a kid. But I played baseball throughout when I was a kid, when I was little. So I played baseball all throughout, probably 5 to 18, and then I couldn't hit a curveball. And nobody really wants a kid who hit like 220 with a 40% strikeout rate in Massachusetts small school, high school baseball varsity to really play at the next level. And I had known that like I wasn't going to play past high school, and I didn't really want to play past high school. So I got into broadcasting. I figured the next best thing, and I figured this out when I was younger, is I always thought it was the coolest thing ever to be able to broadcast games and to be able to call games for a living, because I grew up and it was always John Sterling and Susan Waltman on at the time it was WCBS, but we got it out of 790 AM out of Providence. Somehow in southeastern Massachusetts we got the Yankees radio broadcast. So that's what really made me fall in love with it. And then I got into it during my middle school and high school years through Lancer Sports Network, which I think you might have been a cameraman for on one of the 100.
I do believe a soccer game, I think.
There we go. We go.
Yeah, it was a family production.
It was a family production. You were a cameraman. Our dad was a cameraman at one point. So it was a lot of fun. I think you helped me film things in the basement of our house when we were kids. But it was really, really fun. So I did basketball. I did hockey. I did soccer. I did football. I did some softball, everything but baseball, because I was playing baseball. But obviously still wanted to do baseball. Did some stuff with the Red Sox AAA affiliate in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. The Paw Sox, they had a junior announcer program that was really cool. So I was able to call a couple innings of AAA baseball. And then out of high school, I graduated. I played my final game of baseball. And then the very next day, I started working with the Wareham Gatemen of the Cape Cod Baseball League, where I worked at for 2 seasons. So actually, that was after my junior year, and then after my senior year of high school, I worked with the Wareham Gatemen of the Cape Cod Baseball League, kind of learning the behind the scenes and doing a bit of everything, including some broadcasting, but that wasn't the main part. It was really learning all the back end stuff. And then got the first kind of full broadcasting gig with the High Point Rockers in the Independent Atlantic League, then the Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, and the Fond du Lac Dock Spiders, and then to the Brewers AA affiliate in Biloxi. So it's been quite the journey. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it definitely seems like you've been around the block once or twice in the baseball world.
Yes, it has been quite wild. I've lived in a lot of states, been to a lot of places. Yeah, I mean, I'm probably one of the few people that has gone to Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin, and Jackson, Mississippi, and all the places, Gastonia, North Carolina, all for baseball, which really makes it fun and makes it exciting.
Yeah, and also, really, what brought you to Elon? Because you look at the landscape of sports broadcasters, everybody goes to Syracuse because they seem to be the top dog of broadcasting. What really kind of brought you to Elon as a school that's not really known for producing sports broadcasters?
One of the big things, and when I started looking, I knew I didn't want to go to a place like Syracuse or a place like Mizzou or Arizona State, because those schools are so big. There's a chance you aren't calling a game before like your junior year. And I'd called, I think it was 135 games in high school. So I didn't want to wait around for 2 years not calling a game or anything. And Elon is the perfect opportunity. They have all the infrastructure and the facilities to do it in Taylor Durham. The voice of Elon Athletics does a great job at giving students opportunities as well. So between that, Elon Sports Vision, and WSOE, and being able to really hit the ground running from the time I was a freshman until the end of my time at Elon was really, really big. And that was a really big draw to go into Elon, just because you have all those opportunities available to you from the moment you step onto campus. And that's really unique in college. And it's really something that helped me become a better broadcaster from the first day of my freshman year.
And with that experience of getting on campus and being thrown into basically the fire straight out the start, what kind of experience, how valuable is that to your experience as you came into college knowing you wanted to be a broadcaster. So how valuable was that experience of, hey, you're going to get on campus, go through orientation, and then you're going to go broadcast a game?
It was awesome. I'm not here without what happened at Elon. Because from the time I was a freshman, I was doing basketball on WSOE in the winter. Obviously, my freshman year was the year that COVID hit, so that kind of screwed things up a little bit. But I was doing basketball, I was doing soccer, and then I started working with Taylor Durham for baseball that year as well, early on in the season before COVID canceled everything. So it was huge to be able to have that jump and that head start early on in my college career. And even for students who are looking at places to go and may not have, 135 games of experience in high school, being able to jump right in at Elon is really important, and it really helps you grow in a big time way. Because again, it's not like you're doing just, a couple games here and there. You're doing 20, 30 games every year. And that adds up. And that's just during the school years. So that adds up, and it's really impactful in a number of different ways.
And at Elon, with that great experience that you had, you were able to do both basketballs, baseball, soccer, lacrosse, kind of anything under the sun that Elon offers. Do you have a favorite memory or favorite game that you broadcast? I know your memory's insane with knowing stats and figures, but what's your favorite memory of broadcasting Elon Sports?
I do, and you just said I have a great memory, and I gotta have to look up. The Elon Baseball 2021 schedule to find this game, because I can't remember who did what in this game. But it was in 2021. So in 2021, it was so funny because Taylor Durham and we were on, it was Learfield at the time, it was Learfield IMG College, but we were doing baseball on the patio. So like where they usually have the extra seats in the baseball at the baseball field, we were outside on the porch, which was incredible. Like you just put out the crowd microphone and people are talking about doing their homework. People are talking about their dinner plans. And then it's just Taylor and I calling a baseball game in the background, which was incredible. You learned a lot. You never know what you might hear. But so Elon on, yes, this is the game. All right. So I found it. It was a Friday night. So Elon was playing UNCW at home, and it was Landon Root. That's who it was. He went for UNCW. Brian Edgington went for Elon. Edge right now is in high A in the Reds organization. Root ended up being a high draft pick, and UNCW and Elon baseball are really two of like the powerhouses. It's them, Northeastern, and Charleston are kind of the big four in the CAA baseball wise. So they played a game on Friday, and Elon was down 1-0 until I think it was 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth inning. Garrett Stonehouse singles in the left. It brings in the tying run, like down to the final pitch. And Roop threw, here, I got the box score up. He threw 130 pitches in 8 2/3 innings. So it was a wild, wild, crazy game. And then they get to extras. They go to the 10th inning. And it was a guy by the name of Jack Roberts, who on the year was hitting like .060 something, but lays down a bunt. The third baseman picks it up, throws to first, and just sails it down the right field line. Winning run scores. Edge that day went 8 innings, threw 110 pitches, struck out 8. Roop struck out 12 and gave up 4 hits, and 3 of which came in the 9th inning. It was a wild, wild, crazy game, and getting able to call that alongside Taylor was really, really special. Another one was Elon versus ECU, where they lost 15-0 the night before. ECU, nationally ranked powerhouse in baseball. Elon comes back on Saturday and wins it. I think it was 2-1, and the game ended on a caught stealing of a runner at second. to end the game, which was insane and a whole lot of fun.
And with that, now that you've broadcasted so many Elon baseball games, you're now with the Biloxi Shuckers in the Brewers AA or in the Brewers organization in AA, and you're starting to see some of these guys that you broadcasted with. What is that like, at batting practice? Are you going to go down and say, "Hey, you lost to Elon," kind of thing, or what's that relationship like of you broadcasted with these guys or against these guys, and now you're seeing them come through either Biloxi or in the visiting teams of the Southern League?
Yeah, we got Brock Wilken from Wake Forest, and he was with us this year, and I believe it was last year too. And he came up he came up the last week of the year. But last year, obviously, all the stuff that happened with Elon upsetting Wake Forest and everything, that made a lot of fun jokes. But Brock with Wake, I did an Elon Wake Forest game on my 20th birthday, so that would have been 2021. Brock went 2 for 4, couple of doubles. They won 15-0. So I did make sure to go up to Brock and say, "Hey, thank you for ruining my 20th birthday by just absolutely annihilating Elon baseball." But it also makes it fun. Him and Shane Smith were both Wake Forest guys. So when we had him and they were playing Elon this year, that made some fun banter. It's also funny when guys are doing it on opposing teams. Brooks Baldwin, who went to UNCW, who every single year Elon played UNCW, it was like you could pencil in a 3-hit day for Brooks Baldwin at some point during the weekend. He's playing for Birmingham this year. They come into our place and he's hit 375 and he starts off the week going crazy. And the fun part of it is you get to connect with the guys that you may see other guys that of other teams. I just end up texting Taylor and saying, "Wow, I feel like I'm at Latham Park all over again." Brooks Baldwin is 2 for 4 against the team I broadcast for. This feels like 2021 all over again. So it's really cool. And especially, with the CAA being sort of a mid-major college baseball conference, it's not always that you see guys in minor league baseball and professional baseball, much less 2 steps away from the big leagues. So anytime you see that is really, really cool.
And now moving into what you're doing right now with the Biloxi Shuckers, you are the voice of a AA team fresh out of college. How did that kind of fall into your lap? And how did this situation kind of come to you, and how much have you flourished in that position right now?
Oh yeah, it was pretty crazy. You know the story as well as anybody.
I do.
But yeah, so I was originally hired here to be the assistant, not the full-time number one person. I was supposed to just be here for the 2023 season, and was hired by Garrett Green, who about a month before the season got a job with the Astros AAA affiliate, and the Sugarland Space Cowboys, which Garrett just had a lot of champagne celebrations. They won the first half PCL title. They won the PCL championship, and then they won the AAA national championship. So in year 2 for him, he had a lot of fun with the Space Cowboys. But he had left with about a month before the season started. And I basically went through the interview process again, but instead of interviewing with Garrett to be an assistant, I was interviewing with our general manager, Hunter Reed, to be the voice of the Biloxi Shuckers. And I got the news either the day after my birthday or 2 days after my birthday. My birthday's in late March, right before the season starts. And I got the news that I had been hired as the the number one, and then I was made full-time on July 4th. So right around the midway point of my first season in AA, because it was kind of a trial period, to see if they really, really liked me. But it's been terrific. It's so great. Being able to be on the mic for 138 games every year with the AA team, to work with the Brewers organization, to work with Hunter, our general manager, is absolutely fantastic. Our front office is terrific. We got a lot of really, really terrific people in there. So it's really incredible to be where I am, obviously, as young as I am. I'm really grateful for all the opportunities that I've been able to take advantage of. But it really speaks a lot to what I was able to do in places like Fond du Lac, places like High Point, places like Elon, to be able to really, really grow in that way, to feel comfortable enough to step into this sort of role. Fresh out of college. I quite literally graduated college last year by taking a selfie in the booth in Chattanooga, Tennessee, when we were playing the Lookouts, the Reds AA affiliate, back in 2023. Because also as part of this, I did graduate Elon early. So that's another big thing that Elon allowed me to do. I doubled up on J-term classes, which is a month straight of you take one class every day for 3 hours. I took 2, so I was in class every day for 6 hours. 5 days a week for a month straight in order to graduate, finish out my degree. and come down to Biloxi and join the Shuckers. So it's been wild, but it's really a big testament to everyone who's helped me get to this point. Obviously, very grateful for the Shuckers for this opportunity and the Brewers organization for making this as fun as possible here in Double A.
And your summers are 130, 138 games straight. You have an all-star break for what, 4 days, I think, and maybe a couple. Your traditional Monday off day. How are you, one, preparing yourself from a stat standpoint and a prep standpoint, but also from a physical standpoint, because that's a lot of talking. That's more talking than the average person should really do in a year. So what's your preparation in, coming into a 130, 140 game season?
Well, the big thing's the media guide. And as you very well know, I kind of make sure that gets done early.
Did you start the 2025 yet?
I may or may not have figured out what players I'd like to put in the 2025 media guide about 20 minutes before we hopped on this call. Our season ended 12 days ago. I'm ready to go. But so yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into it. I do drink a very large amount of caffeinated beverages on a weekly basis. A lot of coffees, a lot of energy drinks, a lot of water, a lot of food. To make sure you're not getting hungry on air. But my day starts printing out all of our stat packs, all of our game notes on a daily basis, and that's a lot of the back end prep that you have going into a game about kind of trends and stuff. And I'll do that when filling out my scorebook as well. But you get a lot of stuff as well, whether it's just hanging around our pitchers when they're throwing their bullpens, whether it's hanging out around the batting cages, doing my daily pregame interview that I do with players for our pregame show. So there's a number of different things that go into kind of the day-to-day basis of it. And they're spending a lot of time around our clubhouse and around our players. Just talking with them and chatting with them about certain things. But going into the season, it's everything from making sure all the equipment works, making sure, all the back end stuff is good, because I'm also the producer and the engineer. Big time shout out to WSOE for teaching me how to do all of that stuff while I was at school.
As we are filming in the WSOE studios.
Exactly. I know that studio quite well. So, a big shout out to Elon for letting me learn all that back end stuff going into this, because I am my own producer. I am my own engineer, outside of just calling the game itself. So WSOE really, really a big thank you and a big help in doing that. But yeah, a lot of back end stuff of just player bios, getting ready for the season, planning things out. Media day is a big thing that we do, and I plan that out. A lot of writing, a lot of press releases. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into the off season, and day by day in the regular season, in the postseason, it's just kind of adjusting. And like you said, up to 138 games, because sometimes you do play less because it is the Southern League and it rains every other day and you pull tarp all the time.
What was the tarp count this year?
I think it was 29 times we put it on the field.
Now, you beat me.
69 home games. 60. We played 66 this year. 3 of them got canceled. But yeah, we pulled tarp. I think it was 28 times during the season. So
that's not fun.
For those who are wondering, well, where do you work out during the season? You pull tarp. That is a workout in itself. You pull it on, you pull it off. Heart rate goes through the roof. Legs are pumping. It's basically a workout in itself. You don't need the gym when you can pull tarp in minor league baseball.
I've got Riley here.
Yeah, with all of the experiences you've had in your career, who is like the most famous or influential person that you've met so far?
Oh, well, it's okay. 2 different things of famous versus influential. There's been a lot of people who have really helped out in a big way. There are a number, whether it's with the Brewers organization, or people that I've just met, been able to connect with, that have been a large help in a number of different ways. Whether it's looking over tapes, Steve Shutt, who was my first ever boss in media relations, was a huge help in that regard with the High Point Rockers. Jim Mijanek with the Fond du Lac Dock Spiders was a huge help in learning the media relations side of things. And then in terms of kind of the influential stuff on the broadcast side, Jeff Levering and Josh Maher, who are with the Brewers now, but they're with the Paw Sox now as a kid, was really influential in getting me into broadcasting. Jake Eisenberg has been a huge help and a huge helping hand throughout my time in minor league baseball. He's with the He's with the Kansas City Royals. There's a number of different people, whether it's throughout the Southern League or minor league baseball, that have been so generous with their time answering any questions in that regard, which is just incredible. And most famous, I'd probably say the most famous person I've ever interacted with baseball wise is probably Logan Morrison, who was the first baseman for the Rockers when I was in High Point. But he was a multi-time All-Star. Brandon Woodruff was a thing as well. So he was on a rehab assignment with us, and now Jackson Churio is sitting second in Game 1 of the Wild Card Series for the Milwaukee Brewers. He was with us all year last year, and that would probably be the most current, wildest guy that you're like, how were you here a year ago, sort of thing.
So another question, obviously Elon graduate. How does the school communication especially helped you like achieve all you have so far in your professional career, and any tips for like freshmen like us for that?
I think the big thing is get involved right away. But then again, I know everyone warned you your freshman year, don't do too much, which is incredibly true. But get involved with things that you enjoy doing. So I loved getting involved with WSOE in a big time way. I was a part of the baseball analytics club with Dr. Mark Cryan, who is just a gem of a professor at Elon.
Arguably my favorite. We got to get him on the podcast.
That'd be great. He could tell you all the stories about the Burlington Indians and Royals of the Appy League. That would be a whole lot of fun. But there's a number of different things to do, whether it's ESV, WSOE, and get involved right away with whatever you want to do. So you want to get into broadcasting, don't wait, jump into WSOE, Elon Sports Vision right away. Because those things will get you experience. And broadcasting is one of those things that you can't really learn in the classroom. You can learn all the other stuff in the classroom, like from my side, the writing, the media relations, all that sort of stuff. But broadcasting, getting that experience on air right away is huge, and that's what you can do with Elon Sports Vision and WSOE as a freshman, which is huge.
So building off of that, over your course of being here at Elon, what was your favorite class or your most helpful being here?
Oh, I think my favorite class was anything taught by Dr. Mark Cryan. That was pretty incredible. I had a journalism class with Rich Landsberg, who is just incredible as a professor. It was so much fun to be part of his class. It was like a hardcore news journalism class, which is obviously not anything what I'm doing right now. But he was such a great professor and so much fun to have in class. And then anything by Dr. Cryan was just incredible.
So as with your job with the Biloxi Shuckers, you travel a lot. You are all over the southern United States, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, Louisiana. I don't know where you haven't been in the South. Ballpark food, we know you're a big food fan. What's your favorite ballpark food you've had in your time in the great days of the Summer League?
So the nice thing is that the Brewers are very generous, and we'll get like pregame and postgame, and I'll get pregame up in the press box. But the best ballpark food, now you can get Dippin' Dots in a number of different ballparks and little helmet cups. Those are terrific. I've collected a number of them, whether it's the biscuits or the M-Braves. But as far as like ballpark food to go to, biscuits at Riverwalk Stadium, which is the home of the Montgomery Biscuits, incredible. But the best thing at that ballpark, they have a cinnamon sugar pretzel. See, when you get a pretzel, and they're like, oh, would you like salt or cinnamon sugar? And I learned this last year. I was like, cinnamon sugar. So they take the pretzel, they get a little wet so that the cinnamon sugar like sticks to it. They have a little spray bottle. So they dunk it in the cinnamon sugar. And then they just hand it to you with a cup of frosting. And it is the greatest thing I've ever had at a ballpark.
How many tarp poles does it take
to basic
like...
thing you get to a ballpark, but cinnamon sugar pretzel with a cup of frosting is just glorious.
How many tarp poles do you have to pull in order to burn that all off?
It's fine. You walk around. And my job, especially because I'm on the third floor of the ballpark, so to deliver box scores or stat packs or updated rosters, you're walking around anyways. You average like 3 miles per day walking around, so it all evens out at the end.
Oh, there you go. It's not too bad.
No. And in the Southern League, you go to Montgomery at most for 18 games. That's 3 series. So that's only 3 times you're going to Montgomery per year. So you even it out.
Yeah, and I was also told that you got to go to Brewers spring training this year. So how was that experience? Like what fun things happened? What did you get to do? Just the basics of what you got to learn and stuff like that at spring training.
It was great. It was really, really cool. And that's one of the cool things about my job, is that being in the Brewers organization, you're so intertwined, and you know so many people, whether it's our rovers, our coordinators, our player development staff, and this isn't even getting to the people who are in Biloxi. Um, any of those big time people, whether it's people working in media relations or the broadcast team with the Brewers, you get to interact with all those people on almost a daily or weekly basis. So going out to spring training was not only seeing them, seeing our old players, seeing our old coaches and where they are. It was just so cool to be around everybody for 5 straight days, and be pretty much baseball 24/7. So I was doing some interviews, I was taking pictures. And that's the important thing about my role is it encompasses so much more than just broadcasting. Like, whatever you can do, whether it's photography, which shout out Pierce Yarberry, who was an old Elon baseball sports information director.
The Pierce paperweights are still at Latham Park, just so you know.
This is the greatest thing ever. Pierce is now with Old Dominion, but Pierce, when I was with Elon, would let me take a camera around and take pictures, which in my job is great because I go out to spring training and say, hey, I'll take a camera and I'll take some pictures for social media. Doing interviews with our incoming managers, some of our old coaches, and just seeing everybody and kind of getting the lowdown on who might be coming to Biloxi for the season, because we don't know our exact roster until 3 days before the season starts. So it was really, really awesome to just be around everybody, be around spring training, see everybody, catch up with people who I hadn't seen. Our old manager, Mike Guerrero, is now a roving infield instructor with the Milwaukee Brewers. So to be able to catch up with him and see everybody on player development, it was really, really cool and really, really special to be able to see everybody, be around. I was in the press box and on the field for the breakout series game that the Brewers had against the Royals. So it was just awesome. It was baseball all the time, which in the middle of March is just glorious.
And with that, you've been spring training, you've done 138 baseball games. Now you're officially in the off season. You get to somewhat breathe. What's your off season look like for you, as now, you don't have a baseball game to talk about? Are you now going to go broadcast the AL World Series or the World Series to yourself, or how are you going to fill that void?
Well, so one of the cool things, and this is one of the big things that Elon has allowed me to do, is because I was able to call all these different sports at Elon. I am full-time with the Shuckers, so my off-season consists of a lot of writing press releases, the media guide. We have some fall ball games and some college games at our ballpark, so helping coordinate media passes and credentials and everything on that front for everybody who's coming through our ballpark. We have a music festival at our ballpark that I'm doing the media stuff for. So there's all of that, but because at Elon, through SOE and ESV and alongside Taylor at Learfield, I was able to call basketball and soccer. I am doing some freelance work. So I'll work with South Alabama. Last offseason, I worked a little bit with Pearl River Community College. I worked with the hockey team in town to do some games. So you kind of do a number of different games and a number of different sports in the off season, to not only pass the time, but to be able to broadcast some different things, which is super cool. So I'm doing some soccer now with South Alabama, looking towards the winter months, maybe do some basketball and stuff like that. So there's a lot, in the off season. You're still busy, but obviously you aren't working 14 hours a day. And at 6:35, there's no game to call, which is way less fun.
Yeah, it's not as fun, but still some opportunities around the area. So just to wrap it up, this is your second year in Biloxi, looking on going to your third year there. What does the future hold for you? Obviously, you're trying to make it to the bigs, but what does that look like for you? What's kind of your pathway to get there?
It's funny. A lot of people ask that, and I'm like, oh, so what does it look like? And for broadcasters, that path is a lot like how it works for a player. So just like the players will advance up the levels, broadcasters will do the same. But going into my third year here in Biloxi, and third year with the Brewers organization, one of the big things is the longer building those connections and in continuing those connections. We're hoping the future holds a lot of baseball games. Obviously getting ready for 2025 here in Biloxi. And it's a lot of fun to be able to get ready for a season. And once that season comes, it's just kind of a 138 game marathon. And we made it to the playoffs this year as well. So that was another fun layer on top of it. But it's the future hopefully holds a lot of baseball games, a lot of time in baseball. It's not a job for me. I just kind of get to do something really fun, and someone decides to hand me a paycheck for it, which is sweet. Like, I highly encourage you to find a career of which you're just doing something that you love and something that you find really fun on a daily basis. And someone says, "Hey, we're going to pay you for it." Makes it a lot of fun. Makes it not a job. It's just fun.
Yeah, definitely sounds like a good time. Well, Javik, I want to thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Rising Phoenix podcast. You got any last words or any words of advice for people looking to go into a career like yours?
Well, first off, thank you, brother,
No problem,
for
bro.
having me on this podcast. Mom and Dad will be very happy that we did this.
They will.
But yeah, no, thank you for having me on. And especially people at Elon. One of the most important things is getting experience. Utilize WSOE, utilize Elon Sports Vision, utilize the fact that Taylor Durham has a wealth of knowledge at Learfield. And really utilize the fact that you get so many opportunities here as a student. Aiden, you can talk to this, the amount of opportunities you've got as a student with photography and podcast hosting.
But who would have thought?
You get a number of different opportunities at Elon. Take advantage of it. Aiden can speak to it. I can speak to it. Aiden, you can speak to it about how much it has helped lift off your photography career. I can talk about how much it has helped me get to where I am in broadcasting. And that's one of the special things about Elon, because that is not the norm throughout college. And it makes Elon really special.
Thank you to Javik for joining us on this episode of the Rising Phoenix podcast. If you have not done it already, make sure to subscribe, follow, and like wherever you get your podcasts. We now have over a dozen hours of conversations with Elon alumni and athletes, as well as the staff. If you're an athlete, coach, or alumni interested in being featured on a future episode of the Rising Phoenix podcast, contact Chase Strasser at cstrasser@elon.edu. That is CSTRAWSER@elon.edu. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media channels. We are on X at EU Rising Phoenix, Instagram at Elon Rising Phoenix, and as well as TikTok at Elon Rising Phoenix. New articles, graphics, and other content can be found on these platforms for you to enjoy. Finally, we will have new episodes arriving every other Wednesday, so check back in for a brand new episode with an exciting guest. And thank you for listening to this episode of the Rising Phoenix podcast.